Vasudeva. Hari Om. Sem no mitra sem varunah sem no bhavatvaryama sem na indro bruhaspatihi sem no vishnurukramah namo brahmane namaste vayo tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami ratam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pratyapāschātya deśānām samanvaya vidhāyakam Shantam Somya Gunopetam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Welcome to all our brothers and sisters. Now we are going more deeper and into the details of what we have been studying in this Aphorism 19 about the Videhas and Prakriti Layas, those who have no bodies, those who are without bodies, and those who have merged into the nature. These two categories of the yoga practitioners. So with several examples we have been studying this, the understanding of what Patanjali has given in this 19th aphorism. Of course, for the last 4 episodes, or 4 weeks, we have been studying in the same aphorism. So we should not count how many aphorisms we have completed. That doesn't matter. But how much we have clearly understood. Because this is a subject, a science, which is more for practicing. It means which is to be put into action, connecting to our daily life. Therefore, we have to clearly study all the aspects that are indicated in this aphorism. So, Videhas and Prakriti Layas. So, Videhas, Videha, Deha means body. Videha means those who have no bodies. We are having a body now. That's why we are all able to see each other and talk to each other, meet each other on the physical plane. But after leaving this body, what happens with all that what we have learned? What we have learned is, we might have learned so much. So many sciences and so many books we might have studied, so many sciences we might have learned. What happens to us? What all we have learned, when we have no body, or when we have left the body, what happens to that? What happens is everything is lost. What all we have an association, what all we have more attachment to all these things during the time when we are in the physical body. When we leave the body, all these things are gone. But there is an attachment towards them due to the association and influence upon our consciousness, that is our mind. So when we leave the body, until we take a new body, in between we are videhas. We are without body. Do we exist then when we left the body? Do we exist? That is the question. But the answer is, as very well explained in all these sciences, the science of yoga, the sciences, yes, we exist. Our existence is, if you consider our existence only on the physical plane, then we do not exist after the body is gone, after we leave the body. But in reality, in fact, we continue to exist in the real sense, but without a body. So videha. Here we have to have a clear understanding. Videha means those who have no bodies. Okay. Here, when we are studying this aphorism, to whom it refers? Because those who have no bodies, they are higher beings. As I told you earlier, the devas and all the higher beings, they have no form like our form or physical body, physical level. But that is not the case. Here the reference is to the individuals who are practicing, who have entered into the practice of yoga through abhyasa and vairagya. Because all this is we are studying is about vairagya or non-attachment. So in these aphorisms we have been studying about this vairagya, because these are the two instruments which are prescribed by Patanjali to attain the yogic state. That means the state of suspension of the behavior of the mind. So what is yoga? In the very beginning itself is explained. Yoga chittavritti nirodha. Yoga means suspension of the behavior of the mind. That is yoga, yogic state. So for this, to attain the suspension of the mind, behavior of the mind, we are required to make a practice. What is to be practiced? One is abhyasa, the first step. Repetition of the fact. The known fact is to be repeated in action. So repeated effort, repetition, that is abhyasa. And non-attachment is vairagya. So we are now under study of the subject vairagya. So in the vairagya, we were explained about the higher vairagya and the lower type of vairagya. Apara vairagya, it means the lower type of vairagya, conditional vairagya, and para vairagya, the higher vairagya. So we are studying about this in more detailed manner. So now, about this para vairagya. So, apara vairagya we have studied. Apara vairagya means conscious, the conscious type of vairagya. The conscious state of vairagya. That is not real vairagya or higher absolute vairagya. It is lower one. But this is now we are studying about apara, about para vairagya. Para vairagya is the higher. Para means higher, which is absolute vairagya. So in this, he is given in this aphorism, videha and prakritlayas. There are two categories of practitioners of yoga. Two categories of practitioners. So these two categories, we are now under the study of these two categories of these vairagyas. Those who practice vairagya in these two categories. Now we are studying about videha, how, what is about these videhas. So videha here is a reference to those who again and again take their body, take their birth into the form and getting identified, living identified with the form. So about such people, it is a reference to such people. So in our last lecture, last class, we have mentioned two terms, identity consciousness and identification consciousness. Identification, identity, you see. Identity is identity consciousness is that where you have your own identity which separates you from the others. That is identity consciousness. That you remember all about yourself as a separate entity to keep your identity, your name, your social status, your family status, all so many things associated to you. This is the identity consciousness. And the other is identification. And that means that getting identified with the background consciousness. That is identification. We get identified with the background consciousness, the I am. Who is the background consciousness? What we call the I am, the real I am. That is the background consciousness. So here we have to a little bit go deeper to know about this videha. You see, several times we leave one body and then once again we take another body. This happens several times. So this aphorism is a reference to those. So bhavapratyaya videha prakrutilayanam. So for these two people, two categories of people, videha, those who have no bodies and those who get merged into nature. This nature is not in the background nature, get merged into their own nature. This is also, we must be clear in our mind. What is given in this aphorism, without bodies means when we leave off this physical body and before once again we get another new body. So this is a process. Here we will go into more detailed understanding, very clear understanding. You know how many levels of consciousness? First of all, we must be clear about how many layers in which we are existing. The grossest layer of our existence is our physical body, the frame made of matter, which is called the material body or the physical body. This is the grossest. So this is one level of consciousness. So this body we consider as our body as our entity, our identity also. As our own identity, our own signature, our own identity. This we call, this is the physical existence. And then we have our indriyas, our senses. So the senses, when you consider the consciousness level, the level of consciousness, then it is very clearly given in Bhagavad Gita that your senses are more conscious than your physical body. Indriyani paranyahu. That means the senses are more conscious than your physical body. What does it mean? We know the functioning of our senses. We have our sensorium. It is not just reference to the sense organs. Sense organs are on the physical level, but senses, the 5 senses, sensory activity, senses. The sense of sight, the sense of hearing, the sense of smell, the sense of touch, the sense of sight. All these five senses. So, when you compare the activity of the senses, you can easily understand that it is something trans-physical. You must be clear with this. For example, we have our sense of sight. For the sense of sight, we have a sense organ which we call the eye. The 2 eyes together is the organ of our sense of sight. So this organ is on the physical level. Eyes are on the physical level. But this activity of the sense of sight, this is an activity which is above the physical level. So when you compare the level of the activity of the senses and the level of our physical material body, then you can easily understand that there is a difference in the level of consciousness. The physical body also is conscious, definitely. It's a part of our existence. It is our vehicle, so it is also conscious. It is not just some lifeless material, no, physical body. As long as we are in this body, this is also very conscious. But when you speak of the level of consciousness, the senses are more conscious than the body. Indriyani paranyahoho. So that is the meaning of this, what is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So we must be very, very clear about this. Unless we are clear, we cannot really understand the further steps. So the sense of hearing, we have a hearing organ, which we call the ear, with all the, in the anatomy, the specialist of the ear, he can explain everything about the ear. What he explains is the physical aspect. This we should not forget. What he explains is, he makes an ultra sound, or he makes an, magnetic resonance, whatever. So he wants you to explain the outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, and the eardrum, all these things he can explain. These are still on the physical level. All that what is on the physical level, he can explain. This is a hearing organ. But the sense of hearing is the sense of hearing is higher to the physical organ of the hearing. You see? Sense of hearing uses this organ for its activity. So organ by itself cannot hear. Our eye cannot see by itself. Our eye is used as an instrument by the activity of our sense of sight. Similarly, organ of hearing is used as an instrument by the activity of the sense of hearing. So also about the sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of taste, everything like that. We have this organ, sensory organ, which is on the physical plane, And the activity of the sense is in the higher plane. So, the senses are more conscious than the physical body, than the body. Okay, now you could, I hope it is clear. Senses which are not physical, the sensory activity. So the five sensorium, the senses, are more conscious than the physical body. So then the organs also. And now the activity of the senses is this activity of the senses, the hearing, and sight and touch and smell and taste, all these five activities, all these five, are they independent? Can we sense everything through the independent activity of these five senses? No. All the activity of the five senses is possible through the higher entity which we call mind. That is what we call generally consciousness. What we categorize is matter, force, and consciousness. Matter is the material which corresponds to our physical body. That is matter. Force is energy level that corresponds to the activity of our senses. Then consciousness, generally we use consciousness, that corresponds to the activity of the mind. So this is grossly we can speak. Now we accept, now we have known that our senses are more conscious than our physical body, and then more conscious than the senses is the mind. This is the next step. Because senses by themselves independently, they cannot act. They act. It is the mind which receives. All senses are there to sense something from the outer world. So whatever is received through the senses is received by the mind. So therefore, mind is more conscious than the senses. That is the order of going higher, from lower to higher. This is what we call ascending order. You remember? Ascending order. Ascending. When we go upstairs of a building, we go over the stairs ascending. So this is ascending order. Senses are more conscious than the body. Mind is more conscious than the senses. So this is the third level. Indriyani paranyahu. Indriyebhya param manaha. Manaha means mind. Exactly it is given like this in Bhagavad Gita. You can read in the mantra scripture. In English it is there. So then what is next to the mind? Manasast para buddhihi. The fourth one is what is called buddhi. What is buddhi? The discriminating faculty is called buddhi. So that is more conscious than the mind. Manasastu para buddhi. So there is the fourth one. And beyond this, yo buddhe paratastu saha. Saha means the Purusha, the person, the I am. So that is what we call the soul. That is the fifth aspect, is the soul. In the ascending order, physical body, sensorium, mind, and buddhi, a discriminative faculty, and higher to this is what we call the soul or the I am. That is why when we refer to these five entities, when we refer to them, I can say I have a body. Yes, correct. And I can say I have my sensorium. Yes, it is correct. I can say I have my mind. It is also correct. And then I can say I have my discriminative faculty, my buddhi. That is also correct. Then if I say I have a soul, that is not correct. I am the soul. I am the soul, but not I have the soul. I am the soul. What you call I am is the soul. That is the fifth aspect. So this fifth aspect has three layers. Once again, in this fifth aspect, there are three layers. This is the order in which it is very clearly explained by Master Jwalkul in the books of Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. So, what are the three layers in the fifth aspect, in the soul aspect? That is Nirvanic, Paranirvanic and Mahaparanirvanic. So that is the seventh one, the highest. Mahaparanirvanic plane is the seventh one. So this fifth aspect is the soul aspect. Now that this is clear in our understanding, now when we speak of Videhas and Prakritlayas, so both these category of practitioners, they have a basis, this forms a basis for their rebirth. That is what is given in this 19th aphorism. So once again, you see in this aphorism, Bhava Pratyayaha, the basis to take birth. Those who do not have bodies, Videha, and to those who merge in nature, Prakritilaya. For these two categories, the basis for their coming back to birth. So here, do we have rebirth or not? Or reincarnation or rebirth or not? This is a subject of so much of argument and discussion and all these things. There is no need of discussion or argument because it is very, very clearly given by the Lord Himself. When you see the second chapter in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord very much clarified this, that those who are born, who have taken a body, it is a quite sure a process that they have to leave the body. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu. The one who is born, it is sure that one day he should leave the body, which we call death. And dhruvam janma mritasya cha, he who have left the body, it is also equally sure that he should take the body take another body once again. So this is a cyclic process. getting into the body and work for some time in that body, leave the body, and again take up another body, keep working some time. So this is cyclic activity. And the Lord said confirmedly that it is irrevocable. Nobody can reverse this. So it is very clearly given in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, explaining to Arjuna, because Arjuna was very despondent. He was weeping, Arjuna fellow. Such a hero suddenly got despondence. And what happens if my grandfather dies, my uncles die, my guru will die, my relatives will go away? What is all this nonsense? That's what God said. It is a process in nature. So therefore, you will get a body, work in the body, leave the body, get another body. So this is a process which is irrevocable. Nobody can stop. So why should you weep for this? That is what he said. The learned persons, the learned people will never weep either for those who have left the body or died, and for those who have once again born. They will not weep for both these things. The learned people. Nanu sochanti panditaha. That is what he said in the second chapter. So now the question is, then why in most of the instances in the scriptures it is said that you will have no birth again if you go on the higher plane? What does it mean? Here we must be very clear. Getting into the body is inevitable. That is first point we have to remember for everyone. We cannot say, I don't want to have another birth or another body. It is not. Nature will never ask you a choice. We were never given any choice, unfortunately or fortunately. You may consider fortunate or unfortunate, but nature, the forces of nature never give a choice to us. Mr. Fellow, Mr. So-and-so, do you want to have another body once again or not? No. They will not ask us. We have to accept and follow that. We can neither say that I don't want to die, I want to be in the same body. Also, you cannot say that, oh, I don't want this body, please take away. I don't feel like being in this body. Nothing is under our control. It's too foolish to think like that. That's what the Lord said. That is what is explained in any of the scriptures, in any of the sciences. It is not under our control, never under our control. Is God so aristocratic? Yes. If you say like that. If it is put under our control, we will make all mesh. That is quite sure. Because of our foolish understanding and our emotions and all these things, we make all mesh and confusion in the creation. So therefore, God will never give any choice to us. That is quite sure. So there is no choice. So therefore, now, what does it mean? At one place you said it is inevitable, irrevocable that one will get a body, one will get out of the body, he will get another body. It is irrevocable, irreversible. That is why. Then when you go farther, it is said that you have crossed this and then you have no rebirth. Is it controversial, self-contradictory? It appears like that, but not contradictory. That is what we have to know now. These two statements appear self-contradictory. There is no contradiction of any sort if we clearly understand this. This is a very, very important thing to know very clearly. This is a very scientific thing. So, now these 5 levels of consciousness, we have an idea now. Unless we have a clear understanding of these 5 levels of consciousness, different levels of consciousness. So then, this identity, now you come back to this term identity and identification. When we speak of these 5 levels, up to which level we will have our identity? First of all, only on the physical level, when we have a physical body, a form, then we have identity. Absolutely. I have my name, I am so-and-so, I am Ananta Krishna, I am son of Krishnamacharya, I am husband of so-and-so lady. All these are to confirm my identity. So I may say I am a teacher, I am a homeopathic doctor, or so-and-so, and all these things. I am the father of so-and-so, I am the grandfather of so. All this is identity. So this is my passport, this is my bank account, this is number, my passport number, my national identity number. All this is my identity. I want to keep my identity. I am different from so-and-so. How I am different from others? This is what we call identity, is it not? In simple terms, what is meant by identity? That means how we want to show ourselves different from others. How can you show? Because of all these things. This is the identity. But this is also necessary when we are in the physical, mundane world. And this is not absolutely useless. It is not said that these are useless. If something is useless, then God should be a fool to produce all these useless things. Nothing is useless in this. Identity is also required. Otherwise, what happens? There will be confusion on the physical plane. You see, if you don't have this identity consciousness, if I go out of my house, I forget, and then I will go to other house and knock the door, and he enters into that house and calls that you are my wife. Then what happens? That will be a disaster. So identity is required as long as our physical, we are on the physical plane, mundane world with mundane activity. But this identity is limited only for that. It is limited. We should not forget that when we are on the higher level of consciousness, then this identity is no more useful. So then, up to where? Up to which level? This we have to. So, whether we have rebirth or not, what is rebirth then? There is a lot of confusion and so many things, but when we come to Patanjali or Bhagavad Gita, no confusion at all, very clear. And teachers like Master Jwalkul, Master E.K., or Aurobindo, or all these masters, beyond religion, you should not let religion come into your mind while studying this subject. Keep the religion away. We are speaking of our inner consciousness, no religion. So, these masters, they have very clearly given us how to clearly know these things. So now, Videhas, we have no, when we have left the body, we are Videha. So then, leaving the body, which we call death. What is death actually? This is also a subject of so much of discussion and these things. Simply, death is a change from one state to another state. That is death. That is very clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita also. When we know this, then we have no fear. No anxiety, no fear, nothing. A change of one state to another state is called death for the previous state. Simply. When we, for example, when we have gone into sleep, so that is a different state from the state in which we are in our activity awaken. So when we, suspension of this state and changing to another state is the death of previous state. That is the real meaning of death. So it is a change of state. So this is very, very clearly given in mantra scripture, in the Bhagavad Gita. We need not be confused. It is very clear. There is no confusion at all in this aspect. So here we have to understand very clearly. So what is this identity and identification? So, now, because this Videha and Prakritilaya's basis for rebirth, this is what we have to very clearly understand. So when we leave this physical frame, still, then how we are in the next level of consciousness. We have shifted from this physical level of consciousness into the next level of consciousness. So that is the death of our physical body. So after this span is finished, then this body we live, and we live in the next level of consciousness. But how will be the next level of consciousness? We should not get into a fancy or any other things, only the realistic thing. So the next level of consciousness, there we live for some time. Some people may come back into another body from this level once again. This is what we have to very clearly understand. Not all the people will go into the same level and come from the same level. No. It depends upon how much they are associated with the worldly things when they are in the physical body. Depending on this, how can we understand this? Master has given very practical example. I will just tell you to understand this. There is, suppose, a person who has a habit of having a cup of very strong coffee early in the morning The first activity is to have a cup of coffee. Whether he may wash himself or not, irrespective of that, first of all, he should start with a cup of strong coffee. For so many years, he is habituated. It is a habit. This is not a question of right or wrong, but it is a habit. Suppose now, one day, the time came when he has to leave the body. Suppose he left the body just 5 minutes before the time that every day he takes the coffee. Suppose every day he has a cup of coffee before he has a habit of sitting in meditation, so before sitting in the meditation he has a cup of coffee. About 15 minutes before the meditation he has given a cup of coffee, otherwise he will be very angry. Even though he meditates every day, but he can be angry if he is not given a cup of coffee 15 minutes before meditation. Okay. So suppose he came the last day of his span in that body. So he left his body just 10 minutes before having the cup of coffee. Then what happens? He left the body, no more. Now, after 10 minutes, he feels like having a coffee because of this strong association, habit. He wants to have a coffee, but he has no body, no instrument. He can have the feeling that he should drink coffee, but he has no instrument. So any activity can be possible only during your having a physical body. After leaving the physical body, no such activity. You have to wait until having another body. That is what very clearly given. So even the practice of the yoga practice and spiritual practice also, when we leave the body, from that moment, there is no more progress until you get another body. You have to wait until you get another body to continue the progress. Before that, there is no progress. You will be there as where you are. So this is for sure. So nobody should fancy that after leaving the body, he is making so much of progress, going through so much of all these things. These are all imaginary. Don't imagine. Be practical. You should have an instrument. Without having an instrument, how can you continue your activity? You cannot continue. So this fellow, he left the body just a few minutes before he takes his coffee every morning. So what happens? He feels like having coffee, but he has no instrument. He sees, he can feel all his people are drinking coffee, but he could not drink because his body is there, but he is not there. So this fellow, he can stay in this level of consciousness and he can return into a new body. He can get into a new body from this level. So this is what is called rebirth, technically. So he has taken a new body. Of course, having a new body is inevitable for anybody, but he has taken from this level of consciousness itself. And this is one. There is another fellow who, from this level, he has not got into a body. From this level, he got out of this level of consciousness, which is called another form of body here. Here I am only mentioning the level of consciousness, not calling a body, to avoid the confusion. So he left this level of consciousness from the level of senses. He has gone into the level of the mind. See. So, some people will go up to that level, will leave the physical body. After some time, they will leave the astral body, the second level, and they can be in the mind, still higher consciousness level. So for some time, they can continue in that, and from there once again they can take another body. You see. So, this is another, but then also he has his identity is there. You can say that the same soul has taken another body. Okay. Still next, some other person may go still higher. He may leave this level of consciousness and go higher. That means into the buddhic plane, buddhi, a discriminative will. In that level of consciousness, leaving this also, and there he may stay for some time. From there he can get into another body. He incarnates from there. So from these, the first, he started from the physical body which he left. After leaving the physical body, he may continue for some time into the level which we call technically astral level, and from there itself can take another body. Maybe another person may cross this and get into the next level of consciousness, that is mind, that level of consciousness. Then from there he can take another body. Still another person can go still higher into the buddhic plane, that level of consciousness, and from there he can take another body. So up to this, there is the identity you can have the identity continued. So this is called having another birth like this. He is born. Suppose the person already during the physical existence, his practice has gone to that extent to go beyond this level of consciousness, cross this level of consciousness. Then when he leaves the body, he leaves all these levels and goes into the level of the soul consciousness. So then when he is in the soul consciousness, then his identity is lost. No more identity is there. Because he got identified now with the background consciousness. Because the soul is the real inner light or highest level of consciousness, which is a part of the spirit, the universal soul, one soul. It is a part of that. Because while descending, in the process of descent, we have descended from that one soul, the highest I am, the one I am. From that we have descended as individual, which is also called I am. From there we have descended into all these levels of consciousness. So when a person leaves all these and gets merged into that soul level, then the identity is gone. Then it is said that he is liberated. But then, does it mean that he will not take a body or not? Here, very clearly should be. Does he reincarnate or not? The answer you get from these sciences is that even then also he will take body or reincarnation, but the difference is it is no more with this identification, because he has merged himself into the background nature, higher nature, background nature, not into individual nature. This is we have to remember very clearly, because in these two categories, the second category is those who have merged into the nature. That means not into background nature. Those who have merged into individual nature, that is explained here in this aphorism. But this is those who have merged into background consciousness, into the soul consciousness. So for them, they again take a body, but it is not considered as a rebirth of the same identity. Still difficult for us to understand. Therefore, our Master E.K. has given a very clear example to understand this process also. Let us make an experiment in our laboratory. What is that? You have different vessels and you bring some crystals of sugar. You put one crystal of sugar in each of the vessel. And put some water in each of these. Then what happens? The crystal of sugar will be dissolved in the water which you have put into that vessel, in each of these vessels. Okay? Now each of these vessels contains water in which the sugar is dissolved. Okay. Now you heat each of these vessels to evaporate the water. And what happens after the water is evaporated? You have once again the crystal of sugar in each of the vessel. Now, you can clearly say that it is the same crystal of the sugar which you have put in the beginning to dissolve it in water. Now, after evaporation, it is the same, exactly same crystal of sugar which you have put in each vessel. Is it correct or not? It is exactly correct. Because you have not mixed anything. You have put them separately. You have put 4 or 5 vessels, put in each vessel one crystal of sugar, put some water, get it dissolved, and then again heat each of them, and then you got the crystal back. See? Now, second time, you put water once again in each of these 4 vessels. Once again the crystals have dissolved. Crystal of sugar dissolved in each vessel. Now, you bring all the water into a bigger vessel. The water in all the 4 vessels which contain the sugar in dissolved form, put all the water into one big vessel. All this water. Now you see. So, the water in which the sugar is dissolved in all these 4 vessels is put in a bigger vessel. Okay. Now, you heat this vessel to evaporate this water. Now there is a bigger crystal of sugar, which is the totality of all these crystals, 4 crystals in the 4 vessels. Okay. Now, once again you put some water, dissolve this crystal once again to have the total sugar dissolved, and put equal quantity of this solution in all these 4 vessels, previous vessels, and heat them. To evaporate. Now you have crystals back in each of these 4 vessels. Now can you prove which of these 4 crystals is the original crystal which was put at the very beginning? Can you, in any manner, can you prove? You cannot. Because they are totally dissolved and totally made into one. And a recrystallization was done, but during this recrystallization, you have no identity. You cannot tell which is the original crystal of the sugar, because all these crystals are dissolved and put together into one solution, and again put back into the 4 vessels and evaporated. No doubt that there are now 4 crystals like before, but which crystal is original we cannot, because all are dissolved and they came back from this dissolved solution. So, in this manner, those who have reached the soul level of consciousness through their practice during their lifespan in the physical body, because this should happen while we are in the physical body, because it is through practice of yoga, the practice of vairagya only, that you will raise, your consciousness will rise to that level, soul level. Without this instrument you cannot. So during one lifetime, as a continuation of the process or the practice through many births, your consciousness has raised to the level of the soul. So you reached the soul level. And you have crossed the identity level and you got into identification. You got identified with the one Lord consciousness. This is like how you have mixed all the solution of the sugar into one vessel, like that. And then you have reached soul level there. And then when you leave the body, when you are in the soul level of consciousness, you have left the body and you are given another body, so you are coming from that soul consciousness, no more with this identity. So you cannot say that it is the same soul or same individual who has taken another birth, another body. This cannot be done. Because he got liberated from this identity consciousness. This is what is called liberated state or moksha. So even after this, after he attains, because he should attain while he is in the physical body through this practice. So therefore this practice will continue through the many births. That is also an assurance given to us. When we leave the body, everything is lost. But the yogic attempt is never lost. That is very clearly given by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita. Because Arjuna has questioned about this in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Then the Lord explained very, very clearly. Arjuna has asked the same question. You said we have to practice this yoga. And while practicing, before attaining the highest state, if we leave the body, what happens? Do we lose all this and again start from the beginning in our next incarnation? If it is so, all this is useless. Then the Lord said, no, you will not lose. What all you have, other things are lost. All your educational qualifications, all your relationships, everything are lost. But the yoga, when you made an yoga practice in its true sense, vairagya and all this is never lost. That is what the Lord confirmedly said. This is never lost. So therefore, you will be born in such a family where you have very good conditions to continue your further step for progress. That is very clearly given in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You can read once again. So you have, see, this can be possible when you reach the soul level of consciousness. Then it is. So therefore, so here, Videha and Prakriti Layas, we are studying in this aphorism. So these Videhas and Prakriti Layas, they have Bhava Prachaya, means basis for rebirth. They will come back. Bhava means to be born. That means rebirth. That is called bhava. Prachaya means that you should know that you have to be born again. That is prachaya. So those who are up to this 4th level, so these two category of people who are mentioned in this aphorism 19, Videhas and Prakriti Layas, both these categories of people, they exist in the first 4 levels of consciousness. They will have, so those who have left the body, who believe that, who get identified that with the body, this is where we have to very clearly understand. When we are in the body, in the activity, physical activity, if we have identified ourselves with the body, these are called, these are the people about which he is explaining in his aphorism. That means all the life they have lived identified with the body. That means I am means for them my body. They could not go beyond this. Or their relationship with the wife or with husband, with children, with friends, with all the people who are related. So all through their activity, all through their birth, they believed that all these people are a support for him. This is what we have to. So they completely, because these fellows, because they got identified with their body, therefore all the relationships with the body, they feel supported. They feel that their living is supported by all the relationships. So one day what happens, suddenly he will have a shock. If he lives identified with all these relationships, then he will have a shock. Many people I see, I know many people, they come to me, just an example, they say that we love each other, a man and a woman, whether they are young or old, that doesn't matter. They come together and say, we are very much connected. What does it mean? Is it physical? We should be very, very careful, clear. Connected means physical or higher. If it is only physically connected, then after some time what happens, there will be a disaster. Because what they say, we are connected, we are together, we are connected, that is only emotional, basing on the physical existence. Then what happens, after some time it changes. Emotions cannot continue, they are not stable, never. They will change. So after some time, then we can see them, they say we are so much connected, we live together, we are so much connected. What is this connection? Only physically they live together, that's all. They say they are connected, they are not connected. Because the real connection is beyond physical. That we have to understand. Physical is not eternal. Therefore, real connection is higher than physical. But all the physical relationships we feel connected. We say we are connected. These are emotional connections. So therefore, what happens? There will be a disappointment, a separation, or there will be a difference between father and son, husband and wife, or a difference from with the friends, between the friends. They call, we are together, we are very good friends, but after some time there is a difference of opinion. Then there are no more friends. So they have no significance, what they call friend or relative or all these things. So therefore, as long as he is identified, so this identification is the strong gravitation, it makes a strong gravitation towards the lower level of consciousness, physical, only physical. That is the problem. So gradually, nature trains us to get relieved from this identity consciousness. We are forced to get out of this through some births by the training given by nature to us. This is inevitable. Every individual will have to ascend higher and higher into the level of consciousness through many births. But if we practice this, in the same birth it can be possible. Otherwise, what is the use of practice of yoga, practice of vairagya and all these things? So, it is this is further. So therefore, those videhas are those who have left the body but having all this identity, with all the identity consciousness, with all the relationships, all these things, with this association they have left the body. These are videhas. It is not these higher yogis. How the real yogi will be in this context? That is what Master has given in the book, in the book of Yoga of Patanjali. He said, since yogi suspends his own behavior, even when he is in the body, he can suspend his own behavior. He is not videha, he is sadeha. Sadeha means with the body. A yogi can suspend his own behavior while he is in the body. So all the videha existences are left to nature. So when he leaves the body, the whole thing is handed over to the background nature, not individual nature. They lose the grip of the nature of the individual. Individual nature has no grip anymore on them. For a real yogi, they recede into the wider human nature, not individual nature. Then into the nature of the all living beings. Then into the nature of the planet Earth. Then into the nature of the solar system. And then into the background nature, which has its own qualities, the background nature, cosmic. So yogi will be merged into that. By virtue of it, they are again brought into the existence of individual bodies. You see, in the example which I have explained you, like that, they once again come into incarnation, take the body, but to serve others, not by any sort of bondage, no more bondage. It is only to serve the duty of training the individual consciousness. For that purpose, a yogi may take another birth. When the individual becomes a perfect yogi, he no more needs their training. Hence, they do not bind him in a body. Who has attained the perfect yogic state, then for that person, it is not an obligation to be bound in a body. Yet they serve their purpose to other individuals. Even then also, they come down into the incarnation. Why? To serve others. This is like Master E.K. and all the masters. Many times they come into incarnation, even though they have no obligation. Their coming into physical body is not with any obligation. They are coming from the highest level of consciousness, coming down. Why? What for? They have no purpose. Their purpose is only to serve. That is the only purpose. With that purpose they come down. The purpose which the masters know and serve. This is the sentence what we utter every morning in our invocation. The purpose which the masters know and serve. With that. So, hence they do not, the yogi lives one with them. The yogi lives one with them since he too does not require an individual body. So this is we have to realize again and again. So that is, so we have to know here these Videhas and Prakritilayas, what were mentioned in this aphorism. So Prakritilayas are those who have merged in their own individual nature. So these Prakritilayas are those who have merged in their own individual nature. That is what. What happens for these fellows when they are in the body? So then they are those persons who have who speak about about those who have who speak of the worship of different types of worships of God and all these things, So for them, for these Prakritilayas, for these fellows, they have one particular form of, they make one particular form of God and only bound by this form. Actually, God has no particular form. All the forms belong to God. All the forms belong to one God only, but we cannot understand this. And so we always have only one form of God and think that this is the only God. You see, that is what you see with all the religions. The ultimate truth, what is explained by religion is the same, but you see, one fellow says, it is only if in this form, in Krishna, or as Shiva, or as Buddha, or as Christ, only this path. So this, he cannot understand that it is only one light, one God. So these fellows are Prakritilayas who worship their own imagination, their own form their imagined form of God. So that is what they do. These are the Prakritilayas. So that means here the nature is the individual nature, which is of the three gunas, three qualities. Of the three qualities. So, in every aspect, they are all always identified, they live identified, and they are in this state of mind. Therefore, they are always conditioned. They live conditioned, they live as servant to their own, they are subordinated to their own individual nature. They could not cross their individual nature. So that is, so therefore they have their own procedures, they have their own way of worship, their own procedures and all. So therefore, these Prakritilayas, they also, they may have their own way of worship, but they feel that this is the only thing. So they're conditioning, they condition themselves even in the procedures of this so-called spiritual practice or worship and all these things. So these people are Prakritilayas. So these Prakritilayas, both of them, these Videhas and Prakritilayas, they come into the same level from the same level of consciousness back into the incarnation without making a progress. So that is what is explained in this aphorism. about the Videhas and Prakritilayas. So you see, this 19th aphorism, we have, how much we have to, more and more we have to get into the proper understanding of this. So therefore, that is why I told you in the beginning, don't count on the number of aphorisms, but how much we have understood. So let us continue in our next class and make a further step into our next aphorism. Unless we completely realize very clearly, we could understand this about what is given in this aphorism, what is the use of going into next aphorism? It is not going further into aphorisms, but what is explained by Patanjali, how we can understand from by applying ourselves to that. That is important. Thank you all. Vasudeva.